United States at least is supportive of it. Whether it's playing an active role, you don't really know. It could be, but there are bits and pieces of evidence, but I don't think it's likely that it's playing a significant active role. Not because it wouldn't want to, but because it can't. It doesn't have the power it did, say, back in 1963 and 64, when there was something kind of similar with the institution of the military dictatorship and the overthrow of the Goulart regime, for which the background was partially prepared by the Kennedy administration. Actually, I mentioned Jan Black's book. Since then, a number of other studies have tended to confirm that picture. That the U.S. just doesn't have the means to do that now. But the point of view of the U.S. government, I think, is pretty well represented in the usual places, like the news columns of the New York Times. I'm not talking about the editorials. I'm talking about the news columns, which editorialize constantly. So take a look at an article that appeared a couple of days ago on, I forget the exact title, but it was about how the new government is trying to restore faith in the economy. And how, by privatizing everything, by ending welfare programs and so on, that's how it's restoring faith in the economy. Faith by whom? Well, that's kind of unstated, but we can fill in that blank for ourselves. Actually, there was a nice letter this morning in the Times by two women from one of the women's groups pointing out that the victims are going to be women. That's what they talked about. The victims are also going to be what are called minorities, which is the large majority of the population. Actually, I should say my perspective on Brazil is substantially formed by the fact that I have a private source of information. My wife, who's translating articles from Brazil, translating articles from Brazil to me, and it's very interesting what's happening. It was a very interesting article by Celso Amorim, which my wife translated for me, which he had a very significant role in Brazilian international diplomacy in the last period, Lula period. He really put Brazil on the map. It became one of the most significant countries in global diplomacy. It really had some major achievements, which the Obama administration was infuriated about. For example, at one point, they came very close to solving the whole so-called Iranian nuclear problem. I don't think it's a problem, but what's called the problem of Iranian nuclear development was essentially solved by an initiative by Amorim with Lula's backing, together with Turkey, which had a perfectly sensible way to solve the problem. The Obama administration would pursue and had to back off. But what he pointed out in this article, which appeared in Brazil, is that the Temer government is now trying to reverse the entire South-South diplomacy of the Brazilian initiatives, part of the general U.S. effort to try to break up BRICS, which they obviously don't want, and the new government is trying to convert the diplomacy towards interactions, which means subordination to the North, to the international treaties and so on, to stop this nonsense of dealing with Africa and the South and trying to create an independent bloc in the world. That's very significant, I think, and things like that are happening. And undoubtedly, the U.S. is cheering, just as the New York Times is. They're very similar. But whether they actually have much of an initiative, I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical, not because of lack of interest, but because of